Hey, welcome to Church Tech.Life. I'm Phil, and this is Michael. Hey, how you doing, Michael?
Hey, Phil, what's going on?
Not a whole lot. Hey, we're joining you for our monthly video log, or vlog, as the kids like to call it.
I have a 21-year-old admin, and she makes me feel old on a regular basis. We can't have conversations anymore. Just have no idea what she's saying.
I understand. So I'm older than you, so a 21-year-old admin would be young.
I was going to say half your age, but I didn't want to offend you because it is half your age now. But
it's more than half my age.
That's right. Happy birthday in a month.
Yeah, coming out soon, isn't it? Oh my goodness. So, yeah, thanks for bringing that one up. I appreciate
you're welcome.
it. Yeah. So, on that note, why don't we go to our verse for the week?
Okay, let's go.
All right. Our verse this month is found in Psalms, chapter 1. So, we're going to be on the first chapter of Psalms, and we're going to read verse 1 and 2. It says, "Blessed is the man who walks not in the counsel of wicked, nor stands in the way of sinners, nor sits in the seat of scoffers. But his delight is in the law of the Lord, and on his law he meditates day and night." Love the verse.
Cool. That's awesome. I love it.
That is actually one of the verses I'm trying to memorize. I'm actually trying to memorize all of Psalms chapter 1. So we're going to see how that goes.
Right. I will check back in a month and give you a test.
Cool. All right. Yeah, I'll probably be able to quote the first 3 words. No, I really am trying to memorize it. I'm not kidding about that. So we'll see.
All right, well, let's talk about this month's podcast, or vlog, as the kids call it. Let's talk about this month's vlog. So last month we looked at Phil's tech setup at his church in Lynchburg, and it was really cool to see someone else's setup. And then this week we're doing my tech setup here in Albuquerque. And it was just so fun walking through it and filming it for you guys, and I hope you get something out of it. So one of the first things I want to do is give you a little context for the church. So let's watch the first video.
Well, first, let me give you a little bit of context of the church I serve at. It's a Baptist church, but it's a very good blend of contemporary and traditional. So we'll do songs that came out last year, as well as songs that came out 100 years ago. We have a choir of about 40 people, and an orchestra of about the same size, with string players, oboes, flutes, clarinets, saxophones, trumpets, trombones, you name it. And on the tech side, I'm on staff and my admin is on staff, but the rest are volunteer runs. So volunteers run sound, run lighting, run iMag, run ProPresenter, run live stream audio, run cameras, direct cameras, and then I also rotate between those positions as well. We have one service with about 700 people in attendance, also 140 people online. All right, let's go look at some tech. Well, let's start at the front of house position. We run a Yamaha M7Cl console with Dante Cards equipped on the back. It's an older console, but what I like about it is you can see all 48 channels all at once, so there's no diving through menus or diving through pages to find the channel you need. They're just all right there. What I also like is even though it's a legacy console, there are card slots in the back that it can accept Dante. And because everything I run in the building is Dante equipped, that's just outstanding. Me and a team of volunteers mix at this front of house position, but then also all monitors are run through this as well. Right to the left of that, you'll see a computer setup. This is where I control Dante patching, Shure wireless Workbench, and I can also remote into other computers in the building depending on what I'm doing. The computer running it is actually a little GMK NUC box. It's about this size and runs about $200, but it runs full Windows 11. They're worth checking out if you need a little computer that needs to run web applications or needs to run anything that takes Windows 11. All right, let's jump into wireless microphones real quick. All of our vocalists are using the KSM9 capsule from Shure, as well as the ULXD transmitter from Shure. I know some of you like to mix and match capsules depending on who's singing, but I like to have the consistency throughout, both in consistency of look and also in sound throughout all of my vocalists. And as far as in-ear monitors go, all of the vocalists have wireless Sennheiser body packs. Because all my wireless units use AA batteries, I bought Powerowl 8-bay battery chargers and Fujitsu AA rechargeable batteries. They all fit really nicely into a 1U rack drawer and keeps it nice and tidy.
Hey, so I've got a couple of questions for you. First off, so we were talking about the M7 and you're talking about the card slots on that M7 for the Dante card. So is that one card or how many cards do you have in there?
Yeah. So because all of 48 channels are Dante, we ended up using all 3 card slots for Dante. What's really cool about the M7 is it has those card slots on the back, up to 3, I'm pretty sure. And they can receive MADI, you can run Aviom units through them, and in our case we're using Dante. So each one of them is running 16 channels per, and so we've got 3 of them in the back, adding up to 48 channels.
Excellent, okay. Yeah, we'll get into the Aviom stuff here pretty soon, I guess. So for your Shure microphones, so you're not changing out capsules. I know other people do. So what was your philosophy behind holding the same capsule all the way through?
Yeah. So one of the things is we do not have a consistent praise team group every week. So our singers rotate out. And so if it was one of those situations where you have the same singer every week, you know that, male vocalist A is always going to be on mic number 1, then I could tailor a capsule to him. Like I could demo some stuff from Shure or from SE or Earthworks, but because my praise team rotates out every week, everybody's voice is going to be dramatically different from week to week. And so it made more sense just to make it consistent all the way around, get a nice capsule that'll cover everybody, compared to getting a whole bunch of different ones and it may not match the vocalist the next week. That was the reasoning behind that.
Gotcha. So in your libraries, do you save EQs for individual singers and compression and all that stuff, or do y'all just start from scratch every week?
We start from scratch every week.
Right.
And
so do we.
And the reason why is I feel like it keeps us fresh. It doesn't put us in a box to say, okay, this is the dedicated settings for your John Doe, right? We say, oh, well, last week he was, he had a little too much highs. Let's back that down. Or, oh, I bet you we could adjust this next week. So it keeps us fresh and keeps us from being stagnant every week.
Now, you do something different than what I do whenever it comes to your scene selections on your M7. I know you didn't dive into that in your video, but I'm a little bit curious. Whenever y'all start out your worship services, are you running scenes? Where do you start with? Are you at 0-1 and move forward from there? What does that look like whenever you walk in or as a volunteer walks in to run sound?
Yeah. So I guess let's dive into different kind of approaches to running scenes for Sunday service. We both worked in environments where you came in and everybody shares the same scene. It's the exact same scene, exact same starting point every single week, where everybody starts with the same EQ curve, everybody starts with the same compression settings, and then you adjust from there. There's also a situation at some of the churches we've been at where every volunteer has their own scene, where they tailor the settings the way they like it, and then they recall their scene settings with EQ and compression and gating, that kind of thing. And then also, you've actually worked at a church with this scenario where every song in the set is its own scene. And so during sound
sometimes check, multiple scenes inside of one song as well for
exactly,
us.
Yeah. So depending on what you're doing, you have scene 1 is song 1, and then song 2 is scene 2, and you make different scenes for each one. What works for us and for consistency across the board is we all have the exact same starting point. Scenario number 1 I just went from. So we all start at the exact same place that I predetermined during the week with my worship pastor to say, okay, this is kind of the mix that we're all going to start from, and then volunteers have a box, a brand, an identity for sound that we try to accomplish every week. So that way, if it's one volunteer or me or another volunteer, the mix is pretty similar between weeks, and it's not dramatically different from week to week. I feel like that does more justice in our environment, only because if you have a stronger volunteer or a weaker volunteer, it isn't dramatically different between the two. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And what I said is you and I had come at it with 2 different approaches. It's almost like you knew that in advance, because we're in scenario number 2 at the church I'm at right now. And my volunteers set up their own scenes, and then we just kind of work with each other to make sure that we have the same branded sound is a good word to use. So we just keep the same branding all the way through to make sure that our services are kind of congruent with each other from week to week. And, that way you can't really look back and tell who's mixing, but still. So I find it interesting that, same type of thing, same type of environment. We come at it from 2 different approaches, and, we're still friends.
Well, barely. At least on camera we are. Well, I think one of the things I have to manage is that I'm here at the church every day of the week, and working with the worship pastor, working with the gear every day, whereas the volunteers only show up on Sundays and then for sound check during the week, during rehearsal. So I know the system better than they will ever because I'm around it all the time. And I'm also interfacing with the worship pastor, or in your case, a worship director, music director. So I kind of know what they want. And so it's my responsibility to make sure that their needs are met. And then also it's as easy as possible for the volunteer when they get into the church.
Yeah. No, yeah, I get it. I completely get it. We just come at it from two different ways.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. So your IEMs, so are you running your monitors from your front of house position, or are you running them from a different position, or how does all that work for you?
Yeah. So we choose to have one volunteer that's an audio engineer, and they run front of house in the tech booth. They run them for the audience, and then also on the mixes on the Yamaha we have 7 IEM packs. Each one of them gets their own mix, and so the environment would be that the praise singer or the vocalist on stage would yell back to the sound guy, hey, I'm mic number 1, I'm pack number 1, and I need more piano in my ear. And so then the sound engineer would adjust it from the front of house position in the tech booth.
Excellent. And yeah, we'll get into the musicians in a little bit, because I have a feeling, because I've seen the video, I know what's coming up whenever you start dealing with that.
You've seen the future.
Your batteries are something that kind of interests me, because right now we just got a whole bunch of batteries in. We're doing some actually renovations right now, and I've been fighting with where to put my batteries. Your battery position inside that drawer is very interesting to me. So do you have overheating issues, or do you like where those batteries are? Do you pros and cons of it, and then kind of go from there with me, if you will?
Yeah, for sure. So I used to have a Ansman big honking battery charger that I loved. It never overheated. It never drowned out the batteries over time. It was great. The catch was massive. It was huge, and it only took up like 16 batteries. And it just wasn't space efficient. As we got more and more wireless devices that needed batteries, I would need a whole bunch of those chargers, and it would take up half the worship center with just battery chargers, right? So I said, okay, we got to find a charger that is only about that big, because I got to fit, like 50 batteries within a confined space. And I needed to not overheat. I needed to protect the batteries, stop charging them after they're charged, and then do like a refresh every couple hours or something. And then also I needed it to be clean looking as well, because volunteers are going to be using it, and potentially the congregation can see it as well. So what's cool is I can fit 6 chargers of 8 batteries apiece per charger in a single 1U rack drawer. And that just sits right behind me at the front of house console, and so I have them available at all times. I actually have more batteries than I need as a safety precaution, just in case some battery's dead for some reason. I've got about 8 one-hole charger dedicated just to be in emergencies. When I first got to the church, we were burning through thousands of dollars worth of one-time use normal Energizer or Duracell batteries every year, thousands of dollars worth. And I said, man, we gotta do something about this, because this is not using God's money effectively or efficiently, And I really like those Fujitsu batteries. They last forever. Some of those are 2 years old, and they're charged every week, used every week, and they're still kicking. I love them. So I've never had an issue. Now, I would advise, do what I say, not what I do. Replace them every year, just out of safety, I guess. Protection for yourself. But I've been using some of them for 2 years, and they've been fine.
So you talked about the rechargeable batteries. Is that all that you have is there, or do you also keep some regular non-rechargeable batteries with you?
Yeah. So the things that are very picky about their voltage, for instance, the rechargeable batteries that you can buy usually hit about 1.2 volts as their max voltage, right? And some electronics are really picky about having exactly 1.5 or 3 volts if you have 2 of them in series, right? So I do have some Energizer just regular AA's sitting in the boot just in case. Use those for the keyboards. I have a keyboard that's really picky. I've got my ClearComm unit, actually. The wireless pack is really picky about what kind of batteries it gets, what kind of voltage it receives. So I have regular batteries for that. But for the Priesty microphones and in-ear monitors, I only use the rechargeables.
Gotcha. So for the IEMs, for your actual earbuds themselves that your singers are using, do y'all provide that from the church? What are they using? Are they customized for, like we are only going to use like a Shure E215 or, do you leave that up to your vocalists?
Yeah, so for the vocalists, we provided some of these IE100 Pros from Sennheiser, but we did not provide them for the musicians. And the reason being is we only had 7 vocalists, whereas we had 40 musicians. So it didn't make sense cost-wise for the church to provide IEMs for the musicians, at least the earbuds. Now we did send them a couple different IEMs that we recommended them buying, with the most expensive one only being about $50, and so that was doable for most musicians. And if they had trouble, we helped them out. We bought them as well, but that way we didn't have to purchase all of them at once. Now what's nice is the IE100s came with different earbud sizes, and so that way they could kind of try different ones, see what ones fit their ear better. But we did not go custom molded, only because of price, and we're not the vocalists that we have on stage are not attuned enough that they would notice a huge difference between the ones we provided and something that costs over $600 or $1,000 or $2,000. So this fits our needs and fits their needs, because all they're hearing is themselves, click, piano, and then maybe some ambient noise from the crowd mics. They're not, they don't need that much. Now, if we were Taylor Swift or Brad Paisley out on tour, yeah, you spend $3,000 an ear, but it's a little different because they can hear the difference, whereas our vocalists cannot.
Yeah, and so one of the things that I used to do is I did get those Amazon Z10s, I think they are. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I got the Z10s, and I actually really liked them. I believe it's a triple driver, and I used them for a long time. I'm on an E215 right now, and I really like my 215. But I kind of go back and forth. That if I'm going to play bass guitar, I'll drop down to those Zs, and I really like those Zs. If I'm playing drums, then I'll either do some full headphone cans over the ear just for isolation, or I'll move to my E210s. So
yeah, obviously I love over the ear headphones only because they just, in my opinion, they sound better and they feel better. But just for the look, if you look like this big old DJ with his huge cans on his ears, that just doesn't look good. And so whereas something small and portable like this, we recommend that all of our musicians and vocalists go this route, only for the aesthetics look.
Yeah, whenever I use the cans, I'm actually inside of the drum booth, so I'm inside of that big.
Oh, so no one can see you anyway.
Right. Yeah. The lighting in there is horrible, and we're going to be fixing that. But yeah, I'm very silhouetted inside of there, so I can put those on and have a blast. So.
Cool. Shall we move into the next set?
Yeah, let's move on into the next set, and let's see what else you got going on.
All right, this is our backstage rack. On the top, you'll see 8 Sennheiser transmitters that transmit to our IEM packs. And on top of that, you'll see an antenna combiner that combines all of the antennas from those 8 packs into one fin. The benefit of that is you don't have to have all 8 of them stacked up on the stage with their individual antennas sticking up. You can have all of them plugged into the antenna combiner. It reduces clutter on the stage. Now, these transmitters don't take Dante natively, and so we need a separate Dante box to get those sends from the console to the IEM transmitters. So there's a DT168 made by Alan and Heath. Right underneath it, that all 8 outputs from the console come out of that DT168 into these transmitters. And right under that, you'll see all of our wireless microphone receivers. There are 2 standalone wireless receivers, a gray one and a black one. The gray one is a Sennheiser receiver that receives the signal from our wireless pack from our pastor. And the black one is a roaming microphone for testimonials and things in the audience. Right under that, you'll see 2 rack units of 8 receivers made by Shure. What's really cool about these is that in its 1U rack space, you get 4 receivers. So instead of having 4 individual boxes, receiver boxes, one for each microphone, in 1U rack space, you actually get 4 receivers. It makes it super space efficient and easy to manage. We've got 2 of them, adding up for a whole total of 8 channels. Right above that, we have another antenna combiner, and that goes to another fin up on stage, so that way we don't have to have the receivers in line of sight of the microphones. Well, every single one of our instrumentalists, either in our orchestra or in our praise band, have inner monitors. Well, those are hardwired because it wouldn't make sense for all of those to be wireless just because of the frequency management as well as cost. Every instrumentalist, whether it be a drummer, trombonist, oboe, pianist, all has an Allen & Heath ME500. All these devices get their power via PoE and their signal from a hub unit in the rack. This hub unit also has a Dante card installed. Right below this hub unit is our Dante switch that gets fiber in and then sends Cat7 out. And then finally below that is our camera network switch, and we'll get into that into another video.
All right, so you've got your IEM packs. We've seen those, but your IEM receivers, those are, so your musicians are all using the same transmitters backstage?
Right, so all of the vocalists have the packs.
Gotcha.
And then the musicians have the hardwired Allen & Heath ME500s that we saw. It said Gavin on the top. He's our drummer. That's why it said Gavin.
Hey, shout out to Gavin. Gavin,
that's right.
You're great.
In loving memory of Gavin, we named this ME500 after him. So, he's not dead. He's over there, actually.
Hi, Gavin.
Yeah, so the receivers are back in that backstage rack. Now, that backstage rack that we were just looking at is actually located stage left of the stage. You walk off stage and there's a closet, believe it or not, that all of that sits inside. And on top we saw the in-ear monitor transmitters with the antenna combiner over top, and then DT168, and then the antenna combiner for the praise team mics, and then the praise team microphone receivers there. So what's nice is it's all dedicated, all one little rack. It's only about 12U, and but it's just one power switch. Everything turns on at once.
Excellent. So I know some people will have, this is, you ask one person one opinion, you'll get 30 answers. But you've got all kinds of opinions on where to put antennas, especially those shark fins that you've got. So do you have yours on the back side of the stage, you know, what they would consider upstage in theater? Do you have it out over the audience? Do you have it, you know, stuck to your pastor's head so it's back? Where do you have your antennas placed in your auditorium?
I put them on my son and he just runs around.
That I believe.
No, we have, and I can actually put up a picture right now. We have them on either side of our baptistry window upstage, which is the back wall behind the choir. And back in the production world, when Phil and I used to run concerts and things, we'd actually put them off to one side on stage right or stage left, pointing across the stage. Well, the catch is that we have a whole bunch of interfering frequencies around our area. We have a National Labs, we have a ham radio association literally across the block, and so we have to play a little defense a little bit just in our area. And so we found actually that pointing them across the stage towards the audience worked best for us with reception. And then what's cool is you can't really see them with our stage design. You know, you can see in that picture, you can barely see them. And yeah, that just worked for us. Now the catch is, if you decide to do this for yourself, be careful about your antenna line length. Be sure to look up, even contact your manufacturer to say, okay, how long of an antenna cable can I put in? Because if you make it too long, it just won't work, or you'll have issues. So be sure to look that up if you do this for yourself. Yeah, the other thing too is proximity to other antennas as well. Mm-hmm. We have to actually space out our IEM fin and our praise team microphone fin, you know, about 15 feet apart from each other to minimize interference and just crosstalk.
So you've got one fin for your IEMs and one fin for your microphones, right?
Correct.
So you're only running 2 fins on stage?
Mm-hmm. So I'm running 8 IEM packs on one fin.
Okay.
And then I'm running 10 wireless units on the other fin.
Okay. So you're really only running 2 antennas? You don't run a third one? For a true diversity on your microphones?
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
And it works great.
That is great. Might be something I try.
Now, what's cool is with the antenna combiner, I don't have to have those microphone receivers or the transmitters in line of sight for the microphones. It used to be that you had to put them on stage or front of house pointing toward the stage. They have red steel. I have walls in between the microphones and the receivers, and I have zero issues. It used to be back in the day when you had all the boxes stacked up, I would have dropout, I would have interference, and I would just sweat. I've thought about taking high blood pressure medication every Sunday just because I could see the AF level just drop, and it was the worst. So with the fins, all of that is gone. I haven't lost reception. No, I lost reception once. That was because the worship pastor put his hand over the antenna like this. And I'm like, oh, David, and then he was good. But that's the only time. The rest of it's been just rock solid.
Man, that's great. Yeah, so Michael's in a position where they have a mountain right outside their door almost, and on top of that is 10 or 15 antennas for TV channels and radio channels and all kinds of stuff. So he's got kind of an RF nightmare inside of there. Frequency coordination in his church is very interesting. So
what I do is I cast lots and then pick a frequency.
That, and you use wireless Workbench.
I cast lots more. No, I'm joking. No, I totally use wireless Workbench. I have a really cool handy tool called it's an RF analyzer, and that's separate than wireless Workbench, and it's just a little standalone pocket unit. It looks like kind of like a brick phone from the 80s. But you can tune in your frequencies and see what's going on in the area, and that's become invaluable for my environment just because I'm so frequency ridden. If you're a rural environment or just a normal town that doesn't have national labs or huge antennas like we do, you should be fine.
So we were having some dropout, and I actually have that RF analyzer as well. I didn't realize that y'all had one too. But we were having some issues. I was having some dropout, and I've got wireless Workbench pulled up right next to me in front of house, and it's not showing the dropout. I mean, it shows it whenever I'm looking at it. You can see that there's a dropout, but it's not indicating it on the actual metering of the on the wireless Workbench. So I pulled out that analyzer and I'm looking, and I can see it. It was so quick that it wasn't registering on wireless Workbench, but it was registering on that RF analyzer. So phenomenal tool to use. Highly recommend it.
And it's like $150.
Yeah.
Which is good, because this Christmas I dropped my coffee mug on it, and I got coffee all over it.
Well, at least it's awake.
It's now dead. It's been replaced with a new replacement. So sorry, buddy. But yeah, no kidding. I was in the middle of Christmas production. I'm like, dude, and poor guy's toast. So overdosed on coffee.
All right, so we'll move on into something else now. So you're using the Allen & Heath ME500s?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I have ME500s for all of our brass section, our string section, bass, guitar, electric guitar, that kind of thing. And then I also have ME1s for our drummer and our pianist. The difference between the two is the ME500 is a lot like the Avion units that we're all kind of used to, where you have 16 channels, you predetermine what they are, and that's pretty much what it is. The ME1s can receive, I don't quite remember how many channels, but so many more channels through Dante, and you can mix and match that and change that depending on what your need is. Our drummer outputs a lot of special mixes from Ableton running stems, and then some other things as well, and so he needed a little more flexibility. That's why he got that special unit. But honestly, if you don't need it, you don't need it. That needs to be a phrase. If you don't need it, you don't need it, and live life that way.
Absolutely. So less is more. So you're using an Allen & Heath Stagebox. Is that what I heard?
I'm using a ton of them. And I love them.
So how are you using an Allen & Heath Stagebox and a Yamaha console? That doesn't make sense to me.
So they have a baby called Yamaha Heath. Sorry, I'm speaking in tongues. No. What?
I'll interpret for you.
Yeah, I'm Baptist. We don't speak in tongues. But no, what's really cool about Dante is that you're not confined within a proprietary signal or proprietary system or ecosystem of devices. Like I'm using an Apple right now, and I have an iPhone, and you pretty much have to use Apple stuff with Apple stuff, and you're kind of chained into that environment. Whereas with Dante, what's cool is Allen & Heath can talk to Yamaha, can talk to Digico, can talk to Behringer, and so you're not chained into a special just brand. You can mix and match. And so that's why I have Sennheiser IEMs and Shure wireless mics and Allen Heath Stageboxes and a Yamaha console. It's the magic of Dante.
All right, so I'm a little bit confused. So what this means is, this is great. So I can take a P16 Behringer and I can just slap it down onto one of my Yamaha processors or a Dante processor and use it because it all works, right?
It's not Dante though, right?
No, the P16's not. It's Ultranet.
Okay, so that's the rub. So if it's a proprietary signal from Behringer or Allen & Heath, it will not work with Dante. It has to be Dante. So for instance, the ME500s and the ME1s for the inner monitors for the band, they will not take Dante directly. That's what that hub unit is for. So you saw that Allen & Heath hub unit. It has a Dante card installed. Dante goes in, and then it spits out its Allen & Heath proprietary signal, so that way it can talk to the units. That's why we have to have the hub unit, because it has to get Dante first and convert it. So you can't just put in something like Yamaha's proprietary Stagebox line, or your Allen & Heath proprietary line, or Digico line. It has to be Dante. That's the only catch.
All right. Well, it's got the same cable. The cables fit in, so it should work, right?
You can plug in my Comcast router, right?
That way you can transmit your signal across the cloud, whatever the cloud means. It can rain down your Aviom signal.
Right. The raining Aviom, yes.
All right, well, since we're talking about rain and Avioms, let's go see what else you have going on at your church.
All right, let's talk about our wired microphones. In the choir, we use 4 Earthworks FlexWand mics. These are low-profile, small diaphragm condensers, and what's really handy is they actually have a full-size XLR port on the bottom of the bass stand. They sound great, and they're really small, so it's really hard to see them. We have a lot of instrumentalists on stage, and we've chosen to mic each one individually. In the brass section, on our French horn, trombone, trumpet, and tuba, we use the Rode NT1. In our woodwind section, for our flute, saxophone, clarinets, and oboe, we use the Shure SM81. Over our timpani and auxiliary percussion, we use the large diaphragm Rode NT1. And in all of our string section, we use the clip-on DPA 4099 small diaphragm microphone. And for our live stream broadcast mix, we also have some Rode NT1 mics set up throughout the room to capture sounds in the audience as well as room noise. Because these microphones have to get on the Dante network, we accomplish this with more DT168 Stageboxes. They're small and portable enough that we can route all of our microphone lines to them and then stick them under a chair or a riser.
So your choir microphones, I'm very interested in these because we're actually using the same microphones. So what do you think about them, those Earthworks microphones?
Yeah. So, to be fair, they sound better than any choir mic I've tried. I've tried the old style where you had XY pattern with the small condenser on a stand. I've tried the Audix micro booms that everybody tried from like 2010, right? And I've tried just large diaphragm mics across or even on top, and they sound the best out of all the options. Here's the catch. So for some reason, we have a ton of static electricity buildup on our choir risers. And no matter what I do, every time someone shocks something in that area, it travels through those mics and makes a huge popping noise. Every Sunday without fail. Square number one. Square number two, because of our riser height, I cannot get them high enough to pick up our choir effectively. Now this is something that's unique to my situation where our choir is way up here and the mics can only go up to this point, and so it's not something that's going to affect everybody, but it definitely affects me. And so I'm going to have to modify it where they can actually get taller, put a riser in or something so it can get over the choir. So because of my unique situations with both those points, I'm having issues with them and looking at other options, but that does not mean that they're a bad mic, because I just said they're the best sounding mic that I've tried. It's just with my unique situation, it's a little difficult.
Yeah, for us, I really have liked them. In fact, I've got 3 that I'm using for the choir right now, and I'm actually probably going to pick up a few more for our string sections because I've kind of done the same thing you did, and that is that I had those Audix microphones like what you talked about, but we also had some Audio-Technica 4040s that we were using for our choir, and those were omnidirectional, so they were picking up everything all the way around. Just not a good fit for us. Those Audix microphones, although they're great mics, I just pick up too much room noise inside of those as well. But I actually love these Earthworks microphones. They've been great for our situation. So,
yeah, don't hesitate to pick them up. If you're looking at them, they're great. It's just with my special situation, I need to change it a little bit because of where I'm at. That's all.
Yeah, no, and that's fair. So now the other thing that I'm interested in is that Rode NT1.
Yeah, NT1.
Man, that's cool. So Rode is a camera microphone. So what are you doing using a camera microphone on a?
Well, so I know that's what they're known for. They're a company based out of Australia, and they've kind of built up their reputation of being like a vlog microphone where you take a camera unit, stick a Rode shotgun on it, and run around. This is actually one of their large diaphragm condenser mics that really differs from what they usually do, and I love it. Only because of the price, they sound great, and they're small enough and durable enough that you can pick one up and you don't care if you put it in front of a trombone or if you put it in front of like percussion, for instance, where you have tons of sticks and mallets flying around or a trombone's going to hit it with a slide. It's going to be okay. Whereas if you put a ribbon mic or some of the more delicate large diaphragm condensers down there, I'm going to baby a little bit, and you have to be on the percussionist for that. Whereas this one, I really don't care because it only costs like $250 and it sounds great. And I've never had one fail. So I have 2 on either side of our choir for room noise, 2 in the back in the room for room noise, 1 on each one of our brass players over the timpani and percussion, and they've just been great for that. And what's cool too is they're black, and so they just kind of blend in. They can sit on a little stand about this size of my mug, and they sound great. I'm really happy with them.
Excellent. So, one of the things to realize whenever you're dealing with microphones is there's more than just a couple of patterns, but I'm going to talk about 2 real fast. One of them's called cardioid. So as you come off of your microphone, it kind of forms a heart. So if the microphone is the camera, it kind of forms this lobe back here where it does that, and then it kind of comes around like that for it. So that's a cardioid pattern pickup. And then you got omni. Omni means it picks up all the way around in a big circle. So when you're dealing with these Rode NT1s, do you know what the pattern is for them?
They're cardioid.
Man, that's awesome. So that was one of the issues I got into with those AT4040s that I told you I used for my choir. Those were omnis. So they picked up everything back behind them, and since they were on stage, they picked up my house as well. But that Rode microphone really intrigues me. So I'm interested in that. Now, whenever you mic some of the brass and that type of stuff, are you close miking or like, especially your timpani? Because for Easter, we're actually going to be having a timpani player on stage this year. So I might pick up one of these or a couple of these microphones for our timpani player this year. So thank you for that. But whenever you mic that, are you miking it close to the timpani, or are you, up over their heads a little bit? And so how are you doing that for your timpani?
So in our environment, the percussion, the timpani, the bells, glockenspiel, cymbals.
That's a fun word to say, glockenspiel.
That's what I named my child. We call him Glocky. So the deal with all those instruments is they're very loud inherently. They're a very loud instrument. And so they really don't need all that much amplification. So that is mostly for our live stream mix. So that way they can hear it and they can mix it to taste, whereas in the house, we only blend in a little bit. So because we're trying to pick up an entire percussion section with one microphone, I put it pretty high above their heads. So if I'm looking, it's about 2 feet above their heads, pointing straight down. The capsule is pointing straight down over the drums. And so that picks up cymbal over here, and then timpani, their shaker, or like a tambourine. There's some congas that it picks up. And so we don't have to close mic it just because it's only for broadcast and a little bit of house. Now with the brass, if you're a trumpet player, and you have your microphone about 2 feet away, that's about optimal, only because you're only picking up that, and the further you get away from that, the more you pick up of ambient noise. And if you have multiple musicians lined up, tuba, trumpet, trombone, bass trombone, French horn, and you're only trying to pick up individuals, the closer you get to that individual instrument, the better. So I've got them fairly close to their instrument under their stands, and they can play almost directly into it, just natively. That's the same case with trombone, and then also for French horn, because they play it, the sound comes out of their bell behind them to their side, it's pointing up into their bell. Tuba is a little different, only because it's not a sousaphone where it points forward like in a marching band. It points up, just like any other tuba. So the mic actually has to be on a stand overhead, pointing down into the bell.
Excellent. So there's 2 different types of microphones on top of some other stuff, but you've got a dynamic microphone and a condenser microphone. The big takeaway on that is dynamic microphones do not need phantom power where condensers do. So is this a condenser mic, or is this a dynamic mic, the NT1?
They're condensers, so you'll need phantom power. What's nice is the DT168 Stageboxes, through their web browser app, or their web browser program that you can control remotely, you can turn phantom power on and off from the app. Also, too, on the box, it has a little indicator light that says phantom power is on this channel. So that saves you if you have a device that cannot receive phantom power and actually break if you give it 48 volts. For instance, we just had a massive conference here at the church about a month ago, and a guitarist came in and he had his big expensive ribbon mic. And for those of you who don't know, ribbon mics are very expensive. They're also very fragile, and you can't put too much noise into them, you can't shake them, and least of all, you cannot put in phantom power into them, otherwise they'll literally rip, And so I had to be sure that I was not sending him phantom power, otherwise I'd be buying a new ribbon microphone, and I don't have $2,000, right? So what's cool is on the DT168, I checked on the app, but I also checked on the Stagebox. Yes, I'm not getting phantom power, and I'm good. So now with an SM58, if you give it phantom power, it'll be fine. With some of the other dynamic mics, you'll be fine. It's just if you have some of these, like a Mac, for instance, a audio card going into computer, if you give it phantom power, some of them may not like that. So it's just best practice to start with it off, and if it requires it, then turn phantom power on. The SM81s that we had, the silver microphone that kind of looks like a pencil, those are condenser mics, small diaphragm condensers. So small diaphragm condenser, the microphone's actually smaller. And then NT1s, the diaphragm is actually bigger, the microphone part is actually bigger. Large diaphragm, small diaphragm. They're also phantom power. So what's nice about those is they're picking up clarinets, oboes, saxophone, flute, and so what I like about them is they're actually really, they look directional in that if you point it like an arrow where the microphone is, that's what you're picking up. And so because the instrumentalists are adjusting their own microphone a lot, it's easy to train them to say, hey, this arrow-looking thing, this pencil, if it's not pointing at your instrument, then I'm not picking you up. And so it's a lot easier to train than an NT1, which is in a shock mount, kind of looks like this mug, and you're like, where's it pointing? I don't know. Whereas the pencil, arrow points towards your instrument, right? So, or your sound hole for your flute, or if your saxophone points to your bell, that kind of thing. So, and then I also mentioned the clip-on string mics. Those are the DPA 4099 clip-on mics, and they have been a godsend. So I used to do small diaphragm mics, just like the SM81s, on violins, and they were great because you'd point them straight toward the F holes, and it was great. The catch was they'd lift up their bow and they'd smack the mic. And they'd be playing this beautiful solo, oh, so nice, wham, and it would just ruin all of it. And no amount of processing or compression or any of that, you can't get rid of that. So these mics actually just clip onto, either you can clip onto the bridge of their violin or onto the side and put the microphone right over their strings, and it's just been so nice. What's nice is I really talked to the instrumentalist beforehand, had them try it on, have them put their mic on. I don't put it on for them because, as you know, if you're an instrumentalist, you don't want anybody touching your instrument, especially the greasy sound guy, right? And so, yeah, they put it on, they know where to point it, and it's just been so nice. Every one of those, it comes out of the proprietary DPA microdot cable, and that's a pain in the butt because it's its own separate cable, but whatever, that's something you have to live with, and pops out full-size XLR that plugs directly into the DT168. So they're small, you can get the camera right up into them if they're playing a solo and you don't see a big old microphone, and they don't hit it. They've never hit it because of the way it's positioned, so it's just been great for us. We put that on our cello and violas and violins.
You've also got some Rode NT1s, which are going to shortly become one of my favorite microphones, I think. But you're using those to mic the audience, so why are you doing that?
Yeah. So when I'm mixing broadcasts, which is the mix that goes to live stream on Facebook and YouTube and on archive, if you just send it the raw feed from the microphone with the choir and the vocalists and the instruments, it sounds good, but it sounds pretty dead in that it doesn't feel like you're actually in the room, because when you speak, you're not just hearing my voice, you're also hearing my voice bounce off this wall and bounce off this table and bounce off this screen. And so when I speak, you're also hearing my voice out of my mouth and everywhere else. So that also happens on the stage and in the auditorium, where you have all these instruments or speakers in the audience or over the audience projecting sound toward them. You're also hearing it bounce off the person in front of you and your baby and your coffee, your Starbucks latte, but it's also bouncing off your lights and bouncing off your walls, bouncing off the floor, and so you get ambient noise as well. So when I'm mixing broadcast, I put up microphones all throughout the room, in backstage, at the far back side of the room, and two on either side, to put that noise, room noise, back into the mix. Also, it is double featured when people clap, when people sneeze, when people cheer, when people interact with the pastor during his preaching time. You can hear that. So that way, not the only microphone you hear is his mic, and also those room mics as well.
Excellent. So you mean people can't play loud enough to be heard on the internet?
I mean, the way Phil plays, I can hear him without a microphone 40,000 miles away.
40,000 miles. Yeah, we need to work on your math.
So I made a joke about me being public schooled last week, and I'm going to do it again. I was public schooled, so I don't know what them measurements mean.
Man, I got stories on that one. All right. Let's move on to the next part.
All right,
let's move back to our production control room where our live stream audio broadcast mix is mixed. I'm currently right in the middle of building a brand new live stream broadcast mixing station that mixes in the box via Cubase and uses some outboard gear for processing. It also can do multi-track recording and playback, so be sure to stay tuned for future videos where I go over that. But for now, our live stream broadcast mixing station is done on an iPad in an acoustically treated room with special Avantone monitors. These Avantone speakers are really cool because they're actually built to emulate the awful speakers on your smartphone, on your laptop, or TV. Because most of your audience is watching on devices like these, you want to make sure that it sounds good on smaller, lower quality speakers, and so these monitors help you with that. I am a really big fan of having a dedicated mix for live stream broadcast. Not just using the mono mix from front of house, but mixing separately in another room, so that way you can tailor the mix for people watching online. We send the stereo pre-fader mix into Dante, and then out into these speakers. And then wirelessly via this iPad, we're able to mix and tailor this mix for live broadcast. Then this mix gets sent to the video equipment where it gets embedded with the video feed and then goes off to live stream. Then for convenience for this volunteer, they have a multi-view screen in between the two Avantone speakers where they can see the program feed from the cameras, also the live stream feed, whatever is going to live stream, they can see that. Their audio levels going to live stream, as well as all 8 cameras on the bottom so that way they can see what's going on the stage.
So you've got a broadcast mixer. So you're not just running your mixer from your main board, your main soundboard there at front of house?
Yeah. So I'm not just giving the same mix that we mix at front of house in the auditorium to live stream. The reason being is that I'm a firm believer in tailoring the mix, mixing separately for live stream, for mixing on YouTube, church online, like websites, and then also on Facebook. And the reason is that because of like with the room noise in the worship center, if you have your big old speakers on over your stage and pointing toward the audience, you're not just when you actually hear it in your seat, you're not just hearing those speakers, you're hearing all the room noise, you're hearing acoustic instruments, and you're also hearing just a different environment than what's coming out of the speakers. So if you were to just put that onto YouTube, just straight out of your mixing console into YouTube, it doesn't sound that good, and at least in our situation. And so I chose to mix separately. And the way we do that is that it's literally a mix, like a monitor mix, basically. It's a stereo monitor mix coming out of the board, left and right, panning left and right. I pan all my instruments depending on where they're out on the stage, with the exception of bass and drums. Left and right, depending on where they're at on the stage. And then I have a volunteer whose only job is to mix for broadcast, mix for live stream. And it just has given us a better result than we could ever get coming straight out of the board. Now, that doesn't mean it's going to be the same for everybody. Doesn't mean it's going to be what your church chooses to do. But for our environment, that has worked for us. I've also been a big proponent for mixing in stereo. In our room, we only mix mono because our room is a big, massive fan, and without some tricky processing and different speaker setups, it's really not a good idea for us to go stereo. So this gives us the ability to do mix mono in the worship center and then mix stereo for broadcast.
All right, excellent. So you've got a different mix that's going from your house and in broadcast. That's great. So the speakers are interesting. So you didn't just go out and buy top of the line reference, stereo studio speakers so you could have, the best response and the best stuff. You went out and got something that sounded horrible. That kind of goes against logic, doesn't it?
Right. Well, so if any of you guys have actually made music for yourself, so like for instance, recorded yourself and then made your own track, made your own album, and you mix it out, it sounds great on your beautiful monitors. You're like, oh, it sounds great. Then you take that cassette, I'm dating myself, take that cassette down to your car, plug it in, and it sounds like garbage. You're like, what happened? It sounded great on my awesome monitors. It's that same effect. If you mix on these beautiful monitors and it sounds amazing, and then you put it on an iPhone or you put it on your laptop, it's just not going to sound as good because you don't have massive, beautiful studio quality speakers on your smartphone or on your laptop. And so what a lot of studios do, if you ever look at a studio, a professional mixing studio, not just a home job, but a real production studio, you'll see these massive speakers that cost more than my house, and then they have these little cube things, and you're like, what are those things? And they have a monitor switcher. They switch from the big, expensive yacht speakers to this tiny little crap tone speaker, and that's what we buy. And what's cool is we don't have to do any switching back and forth between our beautiful monitors and our awful Avantones. We already start that way just because all of our audience is going to be watching on lower quality speakers. That's why.
Excellent. Yeah, I know a lot of churches that will have two different speakers inside of there. I was actually going to set up in our broadcast, whenever we get to that, I'll show you the video. I was going to set a sound bar up under one of my TVs for my audio guy to be able to listen to, and then he would have a switch so that he could go between the Yamaha monitors that we're using, and then I want to put some computer monitors on his desk so that he can kind of hear what it sounds like from computer monitors for kind of the same reason that you've got going there. So, yeah. All right. So you've got a TV in there for the big game. That way your broadcast engineer doesn't miss the big game, right?
We can watch the Broncos lose and be sad.
Broncos be sad. Those words have not been used by anybody ever.
Oh, sorry. We'll watch the University of Miami lose. And be sad. Phil's a Miami fan, but. Yeah, so that monitor, the TV in between the two speakers, has just been a great addition in that because that volunteer is not in the room, not in the worship center, they can't look up and say, oh, I have these many violins today. Oh, this person's playing guitar today. Oh, I have this many in the choir. They're kind of stuck in a closet, basically. They're stuck in another room and without any reference of what's going on stage. So we put a TV on there, and it gets the feed from our Multiview Multiview display from our production switcher, and also puts that in there so they can see live stream feed. They can see the live broadcast feed, as well as 8 of the cameras on the bottom, so they can kind of see what's going on in the room. The other cool thing is they are the last person in the building that will see live stream before it leaves, the live stream feed. So they see all the lyrics, they see all the lower thirds at the bottom of the screen. They also see that it's actually working. Nothing's worse than, when you're running sound and someone texts you, hey, live stream's not working. You're like, oh no. But it's somebody out watching at home because you're not watching it, while you're running sound, right? This volunteer, one of their jobs is to make sure, I can see it, and if there's an issue, they're the first person to text or jump on the ClearCom and say, hey, this is an issue, so that way we have time to fix it quickly. So that's why they have that there.
So do y'all start your stream early, or do you start like as soon as the pastor gets up or somebody gets up to welcome?
Yeah, so we start 3 minutes early. They get a 3-minute countdown. So if our service starts at 9:30, our stream actually starts at 9:27. And it's a countdown, 3 minutes. We make sure audio's working. Their job is to make sure it's all working. And then any changes that needs to happen during that 3 minutes, they can do before service starts.
Excellent. So you talked about future upgrades coming. So what are some of your plans for the future for the broadcast?
Yeah, so one of the big reasons is that being a mix from the Yamaha, being a stereo mix, going to live stream, we are stuck with all processing that is done in front of house. All that processing is done on this mix as well. So if there's any EQ that happens to a microphone, any compression, any gates, any other dynamic control, anything that's done in front of house also gets sent to that mix as well. So what makes sound really good in the room may not sound so good for broadcast. And the bummer is with this environment, there's nothing you can do about it. So now one of the biggest pushes to get an upgrade with this new system is that through Dante, they get all the lines raw. So straight out of the microphone into Dante, it goes to front of house and then separately goes to live stream. The nice thing about that is that suddenly they get a raw feed that they can then process separately. They can apply their own gates, they can apply their own compression, EQ, they can change the reverb settings if they want to. They can't do that right now. Delay, they can do side chaining if they wanted to. That's some advanced stuff that we can talk about later. But it gives them the ability to start from scratch and make it sound even better than it already does. Is it necessary? I mean, sound is still on YouTube, right, with this environment, yeah. But because we've already gone the Dante route, it's just the next logical step because music is such a big deal to our church. So, yeah, it was necessary for us, but it may not be necessary for every church.
Excellent. Yeah, we do have a broadcast mixer for ours. We've got a Mirrored CL5 upstairs, and it's getting everything from Dante. One of the things to keep in mind, which I know that you know this, but I'm just kind of telling everybody, is for our front of house position, they control the gains and the gain structure. So we control that at front of house. So even though they are separated and you do have two different processing going on where you can do stuff differently, you are sharing the gains. So just have one person do that. If there's something that's out of whack, my broadcast guy is really good. He sends me an email and says, or actually a text message, and says, "Hey Phil, this is what's going on." Then we will take a look at the gain structure and see if something needs to change. But one of the things to just kind of keep in mind as well.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. This is something I've never done. My whole background is all live production. And so mixing in the studio is something that's very new to me. And so it's something I'm growing in. And mixing in the box, meaning mixing all on a program, and then mixing with outboard gear, which is external rack-mounted units like you see in all the studio pictures. Yeah. Compressors, reverb, delays, bus summing mixers, that kind of thing. It's just been something that's been really cool, but it's a whole rabbit trail that if you don't need to do it, don't do it. Just because it's so expensive, it's so much energy that you have to push in. But if you want to, go for it, but it's not necessary.
Yeah. So so just for my curiosity, are you using any type of waves or any type of like waves rig on either your front of house position or your broadcast position?
Sure. So we're not in front of house, and we'll be only using individual VST plugins from different providers for our live stream suite. So, for instance, that gives us the ability to mix and match between different people, different providers, and we just buy them individually from online, or even get free models as well. And then, as far as external gear, I have a summing mixer, analog summing mixer. I've got bus compressors that are out of the box as well as some other gear as well that I can talk about later. Outboard reverb, that kind of thing, just to reduce processing power on this machine. Just because we have so many channels coming back, we're going to do all 48 plus more, and so you can build the most powerful computer in the world, but it's still going to need a little help. And so this outboard gear is going to add flavor, also help the CPU a little bit as well.
Do y'all do any type of multi-track recording or do anything for virtual sound or anything? And if so, at what position do you do that, front of house or broadcast?
Yeah, so that's in broadcast. So this is a really cool part of the new system is it's actually an older program, but it works great. It's a Tracks Live, and it's actually not supported anymore, but it still works great. And what happens is it all records all 128 channels from Dante individually, and then what happens is, let's pretend we wanted to do a training on a Sunday. So what happens is that Tracks Live records every single microphone, so bass by itself in its own file, guitar in its own file, worship pastor in its own file, that kind of thing. And then when it's time to do a training, let's say on a Tuesday afternoon when nothing's happening, we don't have service going on, we go in, we change the Dante patch, so that way all of the signal is coming from these recording. You push play, and it's as if you have a band on stage without any players. So because you push play on Tracks Live, and it pumps through the bass channel on the bass fader on front of house. The worship pastor is pumped through as if he's singing live through the recording on his channel. So what's cool is that's invaluable for training, for setting presets if we need to. Also, if there's any issues like if we notice he's peaking a little bit, we can go back and listen to it and solo it on like a Tuesday afternoon, and we don't have to have anybody there. So and there's a technical term that you're using for that, and whenever you're recording, so that you can play back later on or do training. What is that called? So Dante Virtual Sound Check. That's
Gotcha.
what that's called.
Excellent. Okay. I don't know of anything else to talk about.
Well, cool. Yeah, it's been really fun going through this. It opened my eyes to some things I need to upgrade, and then also it's been cool to talk about what I do, because then if you can teach what you do, it makes you understand it more, or you have to understand it more in order to teach. And so it's been really good for me. And then also too, if it helps you guys out, let me know. I want to be able to help you guys out in any way we can. Of course, Phil has as well. Be sure to go back to last month's episode and watch Phil's broadcasts and audio walkthrough, just because it was really cool, and he's doing some really cool stuff that's outside the norm that fixes a lot of the problems that you guys may be encountering. So,
and we'll link that video down below so that you'll have that. We'll link in some of the other stuff. That Rode NT1, that's a phenomenal mic. We might even try to link something like that in there so you can find it or get specs on it. Those Earthworks microphones are pretty new. I actually have the Earthworks capsules I'm using. You're using the other capsules for your wireless mics. I'm using that same Earthworks capsule for my microphones for all of our vocals and stuff. So there's some really good stuff that's out there. Love to answer questions, love to talk with you, and love to just kind of help you out with some stuff.
Yeah. Cool. Well, be sure to like and subscribe. That really helps out the channel. We are growing. We're growing by the day, honestly. What's cool is we're 3 episodes in and we're growing and growing, and it's really cool to see how God's going to be using this channel and then also ministering to us as we teach you guys.
And we've got some good stuff that's going to be coming out. I just did an unboxing on some microphones. Well, it's really not an unboxing. It's just kind of a review for some microphones. Michael's got a couple of things he's going to be doing soon. I've got another project I'm about to put out that's all going to come in on this channel. And it's going to be separate from our regular vlogs, our monthly vlogs that we're doing right now. So they're just going to kind of be like little one-offs, little things to just try to help you and give you some ideas and just some encouragement while you're there. So.
And if you guys have any topics that you want to cover, you want us to cover in like a 10-minute section or even like a 5 or 2-minute section, let us know, because we deal with this every day. We're full-time on a church staff, and we want to help you guys with this.
Yeah.
So.
One of the things I'd love to talk about soon is doing some volunteer training stuff. What we're doing, what you're doing, Michael, at your church to train volunteers. What I'm doing something that's a little bit interesting. So maybe a little foreshadowing there.
What's cool is I'm currently interacting with student ministry as well. We have a lot of students volunteering on cameras and doing lighting and things like that, and engaging the next generation in service, and also giving them a place to serve in the church where in a lot of places they can't serve. And so just talking about that's going to be a future episode coming up, and how we use students and still keep our quality bar very high. So be looking out for that soon.
So, and I'm Phil.
I'm Michael.
And I greatly appreciate you joining in today. And leave comments, leave questions, leave everything down below, and we'd love to interact with you. Thanks, and we'll see you next month.
See you guys. Bye.